Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty. The first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I am your host, Butch Theory, here again this week, and before we jump into the reports, we've got a really cool opportunity for you. We have partnered with AFTCO, and they are offering all of our listeners 10% off AFTCO products. All you have to do to get your 10% off is text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Again, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Subscribe to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, guys, we have a great Alabama saltwater fishing report lined up for you this week. But first, let's take a few minutes to check out a few of this week's great sponsors. This week's Alabama saltwater fishing report is brought to you by Sportsman's Marine.
Hey, guys, it's Jason at Sportsman's Marine in Fairhope. Wanted to show a little bit of customer appreciation for the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo this week. Anything fishing in our store, fishing related, rod and reels, tackle, you name it. If it has to do with fishing, it's 15% off. To go along with that, we're also offering 25% off of all of our apparel. That's even including some of our AFTCO stuff, Salt Life, you name it. If it's clothing, it's 25% off. Y'all come out and see us in Fairhope off of US Highway 98. We look forward to seeing y'all.
And also brought to you by CCA Alabama.
Hey guys, it's Blakely Ellis with CCA Alabama. This weekend down at the rodeo, we're going to have a special silent auction going on. We haven't set the times yet because we're not quite sure when the best time will be. But if you text ADSFR to the number 76278, they'll send you back a link and you can register that way. You can also check out the other items that we're going to have up for purchase. So we're going to have some great deals on some items regardless of if the auction is over or not. So make sure you check out those items. We're going to have some good deals. And then also definitely don't forget to register for our Star Tournament. It's only $75 and it runs now through the end of the summer, through Labor Day. And if you catch one of our special blue tagged redfish, you're going to win a 2022 Nautic Star 22-foot bay boat with a 150 Yamaha package worth over $65,000. So don't miss out.
And also, Admiral Shellfish. Admiral oysters are available at select restaurants and can also be purchased by the public at Bon Secours Fisheries, Inc. and Ahi Seafood in Fairhope, Alabama. Call for availability. From a simple, nutrient-dense appetizer at home or a shucking party with friends, Admiral oysters will steal the show. Follow their adventures on Instagram at Admiral Shellfish Co. All right, guys, welcome back to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. Due to some technical difficulties, we have to put out a different kind of show. Here are 3 incredible specials that Joe and I have recorded over the last couple of weeks that we know you guys wanted to hear. I would have rather put them out in a different order than this, but like I said, we had some technical difficulties, and I have never been one to take note to be a technological genius. So it just is what it is this week. Like I said, you guys enjoy, and we'll be at ICAST next week. So whenever I get back from ICAST, we will be back to our regular fishing reports. You guys be safe this weekend at the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Guys, on this week's special segment, we're going to be talking about how to overcome joint disease and how you can get back outdoors if this is something that's bothering you. Butch, hunting and fishing is such a big part of my life. I cannot imagine not being able to go do it if I wanted to.
I agree, man. I've been through some breaks and some surgeries and some pain battles myself with arthritis in my lower back and some other issues as well. And I have been there, man, and not that fun. I wasn't, totally on disability or anything, but I got to a point where I could not enjoy myself in the outdoors the way that I had before. And right. It's not great.
Yeah. And if you get to the point where you're unable to do things, not only just not unable to do them, but unable to do them the way you want them. I mean, you think about simple stuff. You're going to load up the boat for a day on the water. You're going to have to be lifting coolers. You're going to have to be, doing things that require you to move correctly. And so many people are, hey, I can't do that, or I got to get help to do that. Or, that's going to cause me a lot of pain, or they're worried that if they do that, it might lay them out for a week. Doesn't have to be that way.
I agree, man. I think one of the biggest things to take away from today is how important it is for us to be in the outdoors. And whenever I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, it impacts my whole life. It impacts everything around me. And in order to be able to get back in the outdoors as quickly as possible.
That's exactly right, Butch. And that's why we wanted to have this conversation today. We want to introduce you guys to the newest sponsor of the Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network, and that's Striker Joint Replacement and Mako Smart Robotics. Today, we're talking with Dr. Jacob Seals to learn more about why this sponsorship makes sense to talk to hunters and anglers. So, Dr. Seals, thanks for joining us. First off, tell everybody a little bit about your specialty.
Well, guys, first of all, thanks for having me on. So I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I specialize in total joint replacement. So specializing in hip and knee replacement specifically. So after my orthopedic residency, which is a 5-year training program after medical school, I did an extra year of specialty training in hip and knee replacement. So I not only do first time around hip and knee replacements, but also the revisions of those. So this is 95% of what I do day in and day out.
Well, I think the first thing we got to cover today is why this makes sense to talk about on podcasts where our predominant topic of discussion is going to be fishing. And why do you think there's a fit here to have this discussion?
Well, hunting and fishing are lifelong sports. You can do it through your whole life. And yes, hip and knee replacement is mostly in the older population. I would say most people are in their 60s or 70s on average when they get hip replacements, but I have tons of patients who are still very active hunters and fishers who need these surgeries, and we can get them back to doing what they enjoy.
You know, you talking about that, like you say, it typically ends up being somebody in their later years that has a joint replacement done. I've got some family members that have actually had them done, what I would say is fairly early. And you know, I know that, you know, this podcast isn't necessarily going to resonate with everybody because they may not have joint disease and they may not have a situation that this matters to them, but they probably do know someone who is either currently debilitated by a joint problem or is constantly nagging them. Who is joint replacement really intended for?
By far and away, the most common reason to need a hip or knee replacement is osteoarthritis. That's your wear and tear arthritis. That's by far and away most common. And there are hundreds of thousands of hip and knee replacements done in the U.S. every year for those. So it's and those numbers are just growing every year. So it's becoming more and more common. The population in general is aging, and we are getting better at these procedures, at getting people back to enjoying life. And so I tell people, you know, genetics play a role in how quickly you develop arthritis, but if you live long enough, you're going to get it. And so it's a very common thing at some point in life that you or someone you know will need this.
Sometimes getting older is not always the friendliest thing to our bodies, for sure. I know I feel it, and I'm not very old at all. Just talking about the point of who a joint replacement is right for. I can't tell you how many people that I talk to. My neighbor is kind of going through it right now. He's putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And my father-in-law the same way. He put off both knees and both hips for as long as possible. But after he got them, it seemed like, man, I should have done that years ago. You know, I seem like everybody I talk to pretty much says that. How often do people postpone it to a point of they should have done it years ago? And how do you know when you reach that point?
I hear it every day in clinic. I have patients come back 2 weeks after surgery. I normally see them back 2 weeks after their procedure. And I hear it all the time. Man, I'm so frustrated that I waited so long to get this done. I already feel so much better. So it's a conversation I have every day in clinic that people tell that to me. Yes, it's normal to be nervous about having a surgery done, but we've really developed these procedures a lot over the years. We're getting a lot better and people are recovering faster. So if you're getting to the point where the arthritis is keeping you from doing things you enjoy doing, that's when I tell patients it's time to move forward and get it done.
Dr. Seals, my brother-in-law recently had a hip replaced, and he's fairly young. One of the things that was interesting to me, well, like you mentioned, his recovery was, I couldn't believe how fast he was back
crazy
up
wild.
And at it.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that he was having a lot of back pain. And so this back pain was nagging him, bothering him for years. And it was because his hip had deteriorated. And so I say that to ask you this question. You mentioned that osteoarthritis and joint disease is typically the most common problem. What are some of the symptoms that people should be looking for to know that they've got this issue? I mean, is it always going to be pain in the joint that needs to be replaced, or could it be some of this referred pain, I guess you would almost call that, where I would imagine his gait patterns had changed.
That's what I was going to say too. His gait's probably
causing his back pain. I don't know.
The two most common symptoms by far and away are just pain and stiffness in that affected joint. Pain can refer a little bit. Hip pain frequently refers down into the thigh. So most people feel it in the groin, and it'll refer down into their thigh. Sometimes it'll refer down to their knee. Knee pain usually stays centered on the knee, and it's pretty odd for it to necessarily refer anywhere, but But those are by far and away the most common symptoms. And yes, as you get stiff, especially with hips, people will start to limp quite a bit, which is likely why he was having back issues, because as you start to limp more, it'll aggravate your back.
Butch was talking about how he knows people that have put this off. I definitely have seen the same thing. And everybody I've talked to that has put it off, once they've had it done, they're so glad they did it. They wish they had done it earlier. They wish they wouldn't have missed out on the things they missed out on, kind of waiting. So you talked about it's okay to be
scared a little bit.
Be a little scared, What are some of those fears? What are some of those misconceptions people have about joint replacement? Like I said, I can't believe how fast he's backing up on his feet and doing normal stuff.
Yeah, most people are just worried about, how long it's going to take them to recover, the pain they're going to have post-operatively, which are normal concerns. So most people have that, but we've really improved these procedures a lot. So now, the hip and knee replacements both take me about 30 to 40 minutes to do the procedure. You're up walking usually a couple hours after the surgery's done. 90% are going home the same day with this now. And so most people by around 6 weeks, they're pretty well recovered and back to normal stuff. And I frequently, I tell people recovery is a spectrum. Not everyone's going to recover at the same rate. But I have people all the time that come in at 2 weeks walking unassisted, like nothing happened to them.
Wow.
It even surprises me sometimes how quickly people bounce back.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, when I think about joint replacement, I would envision that being a much greater amount of downtime and being pretty drastic. But I guess, like you say, it's just
the technology's come so far.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so what is that? You talk about the downtime. People can expect maybe 6 weeks, and everybody's going to be a little different. Some people are going to get better faster. Some people are going to get better slower. It probably depends a lot on what kind of shape they're in going into the procedure, I'm sure. What about costs? I mean, is this something that's typically covered by insurance? I mean, who ends up paying for it?
It's always covered by insurance. Now, there's a lot of different insurance plans out there. And so you may have a deductible and your own portion that you have to pay, but these are always covered by insurance. And we always get that approved ahead of time, and people will know what their out-of-pocket expense will be. And that just varies from insurance to insurance.
Sure, that makes sense. So like we were talking about earlier, I assume that everybody is not a great fit for this, just depending on, whatever you have going on. But I assume there's a consultation process. Just kind of walk us through kind of the start to finish deal.
So patients come in having hip or knee pain. That's what I specialize in. So that's what I see in clinic predominantly. And so we'll get imaging. I'll see them in clinic. We'll get x-rays. Sometimes we'll get an MRI depending on what's going on. And once they're diagnosed with hip or knee arthritis, we'll walk through our options of potential conservative treatments, potential bracing, physical therapy, injections, and we'll try those for a period of time as long as they're working well. At least early on in the process, people do pretty well. A lot of times just getting occasional injections. I've had people go years where the injections control that pain and they're able to function. But long term, nothing that we have in modern medicine stops or prevents the arthritis from progressing. And so at some point, it'll gradually worsen. It'll get to where those conservative treatments don't work enough anymore, and it starts to interfere with people's activities and their lives. And that's when they'll make a decision to move forward with getting it replaced.
All right, Dr. Seals, today we're kind of highlighting the robotics portion of this surgery for Stryker and Mako. Just kind of tell us a little bit about that, what that looks like. I'm picturing in my head, you in surgery, and you got R2-D2 over here kind of assisting you with his arms. So just kind of give us an outline of what that looks like. Like, what does surgery look like? We picture robots there, but then again, surgery on TV and things looks totally different than it probably does in real life for us fishermen and hunters out here. So just kind of walk us through what that means.
Sure. So figure out what's going on when you're kind of new to this and don't know the behind the scenes on all of this. So the new robotic technology is pretty amazing. So basically we get a CT scan of the affected joint, the hip or knee, preoperatively, and it goes into this robotic system. And so the robotic system is an arm that is a tool I use during surgery to help me make the cuts that I need to make and get the implants in within 0.5 millimeter and 0.5 degree of exactly where we want them to be. So the sizing and the alignment is perfect every time. And because we can be so precise with the implants, it allows me to do less soft tissue work which that's where it's helped me and my patients have a faster recovery, basically, because I can be so precise with implant position. I can do less soft tissue work around the knee or hip, and that helps with less pain postoperatively.
Thinking about a 6-week recovery from something like this, give or take, is just amazing to me. The fact that you can do that and like say, be back up and at 'em, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
What does the entire process look like? I mean, I like the fact that you say, first off, you're not pressuring anybody into having a joint replacement. You're trying to take care of that joint, get them through for as long as they can. And if they don't need it, they don't need it. But when it comes time and they've made the decision that it is time to do this, how long are we talking about from the day you say go to being able to get into surgery to being obviously maybe 6 weeks past that, you're kind of back to normal life?
Sure. Usually, at some point along the road, these conservative treatments that we were talking about earlier will quit working, and then we'll have that conversation. The patients will tell me, "Okay, I'm ready to move forward with this." So basically, I'll get them in touch with my scheduler. They'll pick out a date for surgery. Usually, we can get them on the schedule within a month, and we'd like to get preoperative clearance from their primary care doctor leading up and make sure they're tuned up and ready for surgery from the medical standpoint. Get basic lab work and whatever else they need. Sometimes they'll see their cardiologist if they had previous heart issues and whatnot. But almost everyone universally is a candidate now, especially with how little blood loss we have and how low the risk is overall at this point. And so then I'll see them back once they get cleared. I'll see them back for a preoperative appointment, usually within a week of surgery, and answer any other questions they have. Make sure clearances look good. And then we'll get their surgery done. I'll see them back 2 weeks after surgery. We usually start with in-home therapy for the first 2 weeks and then start some outpatient therapy after I see them back.
When you start to think about 10 weeks is basically,
incredible, man.
The time frame and how many years so many people end up
suffering,
yeah. Right? Because with pain and not just the pain, but missing out on opportunities. I can't tell you how many people
and grandkids
reach out to us and say, "Man, I wish I could have fished like I used to, or I wish I could hunt like I used to," and I'd love to be able to go back to those days. And if this is what's holding them back, it doesn't have to. And that's really cool. If folks do want to reach out to get more information, find out if they're a candidate, if it's right for them, where would you tell them to go?
So the website for my group is orthopedicassociates.net. There's a lot of information there. And then also you can look up Stryker Mako Robotics, and they'll give you a lot of information and videos as detailed as you want to get them that you can find online of the robotic system and that technology. So there's a lot of information online.
Well, Dr. Seals, we appreciate you coming on. Like you said in the beginning, I mean, these are lifelong pursuits, and I'm sure it feels good when you see people getting back to doing what they wanted to do in the first place. And that's the whole point. We appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit of information about this, and for you guys being a sponsor of the podcast network. I mean, y'all are the reason why all the information we bring every week is free to everybody. And we appreciate your sponsorship.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Butch, when we were putting together this podcast, it's kind of funny because we were like, how does joint replacement have a place on a podcast about hunting or fishing?
I think it's a perfect fit for some of our listeners. And like you were kind of saying in the beginning, man, we're not getting any younger, and neither are our parents. And our parents are about at that age, and so are our grandparents and stuff. So
yep.
I'm definitely going to be spreading the word, man. There's no sense in being uncomfortable any longer than you have to, like we were talking about earlier with Dr. Seals.
And I just didn't realize either that it was such a quick recovery too. I mean, I know people that have had joint replacements. I don't know a single person that's had one that hasn't been like, yeah, it wasn't that bad. And yeah, I wish I would have done it earlier instead of suffering for the amount of time that I did. But I can name several people that need them that I know that are putting them off. And why be in pain and why miss out? We asked Dr. Seals where he'd point people. Another place you guys can go if you want more information, go to makogdo.com. They've got an interesting webinar where you can learn all about arthritis of the hip and knee, the Mako Smart Robotics technology, everything they do from a surgical and non-surgical standpoint for treatment. If you want to get more information, just head over to makogdo.com.
All right, guys, let's take a quick break and check out a few of this week's sponsors. That segment was brought to you by Ricciardone Family Dentistry. Dr. Josh is a local dentist with 11 years of experience and is also an avid angler. He enjoys ripping lips as much as he enjoys making your smile perfect. At Ricciardone Family Dentistry, they treat their patients like family and friends. They accept most dental insurances and see patients of all ages. Is your skin a little wrinkled from years of sun damage? Dr. Josh also offers cosmetic Botox. Don't let an achy tooth or a broken tooth from biting your fishing line too much keep you from a great day outdoors. Or if you just need a checkup, call them today at 251-342-6672 to book an appointment today. And also brought to you by American Fishing Tackle Company. AFCO's fishing clothing is designed to handle the harshest elements. From cold tournament mornings to the humid summers of Florida, their products are built to handle the extreme. They're proud to hear customer stories about the 20-plus year-long life cycle of their AFCO products. Their passion for the outdoors goes beyond their products. They're committed to protecting their fishing resources and angler rights. Through their 10% pledge to protect and conserve, your purchase of any AFTCO product directly supports conservation initiatives. Visit aftco.com. That's AFTCO.com to learn more. And also by Photonis Defense is proud to offer the PD Pro line of night vision systems. The PD Pro series is the world's smallest and lightest night vision goggles built around the Photonis 16mm filmless 4G image intensifier tubes in their hybrid filmless 18mm image intensifier tubes. These ultra-light, ultra-compact night vision systems deliver cleanest images, best resolution, smallest, most transparent halo, and best overall performance and function of any night vision system available. The PDR Pro line consists of the PD Pro M 16mm monocular, the PD Pro B 16mm binocular, and the PD Pro Q panoramic night vision system. Photonis Defense, masters of darkness.
Butch, this is a little segment that is it's relevant to situation you and I are going through right now. You're coming over this way to see me this weekend, and y'all have had kind of a mix up, and you're unable to use your tow vehicle to come over and unable to bring your boat. It's snapper season's opening up over here. You know, you and I want to get on the water and get out there and get after them. And so we're bootless for this weekend, you know, and unable to go. And so really this is a scenario that happens a lot when you're in an unfamiliar port.
It does. Well, I ran into it whenever I moved to Virginia Beach. I ran into the same exact problem. You know, it's like, do I buy a boat? I didn't know the water very well. I didn't know anything about the fishing. I didn't know anything about the navigational hazards or any of the area at all. So yeah.
And you'd also, didn't know how much you were going to use a boat if you did buy one.
Correct. We just wanted to get on the water to get, out of the house. We didn't know that wanted to get on the water.
You didn't even have a first mate yet, somebody a buddy that could go with you and help you, share
some responsibilities.
Yeah. For those types of situations for anglers, I think looking at something like a boat club where you go into new ports and maybe even if you're somebody that spends a lot of time at the beach a few times a year, but don't want to own a boat full time just so you can go fishing 3 or 4 times a year, boat clubs really start to make a lot of sense. So today we're going to get into what you need to be thinking about if you're thinking about a boating club. And to do that, we got Russell Atkinson joining us today. Russell, tell us a little bit about yourself and also your Freedom Boat Club.
Awesome. Hey guys, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And Butch, you're right. You're right on. Your example of when you moved and all those questionable unknowns about boating is exactly why we're in business. So I've been in the business with a boat club now. I bought the franchise in 2018, but prior to that, I feel like the hair loss president for hair loss before I was actually a member, right? So I used the service for 7 years. When I moved down here from Atlanta to the Orange Beach area, I obviously did exactly what everybody wanted to do and started shopping for boats and want to get on the water. I mean, that's what brings people to this area and such a great resource for us to have right here in our backyard. And that doesn't matter if you're just a recreational boater or a fisherman. So we started looking and I wanted a center console boat and my wife wanted a pontoon, but I knew for sure I didn't want to own 2 boats. I didn't want to store 2 boats. I didn't want to insure 2 boats, and I sure as heck didn't want to maintain 2 boats. So we joined the boat club, and that's kind of how we got into it. Spent 20 years in the financial services industry, and just woke up one day and decided I wanted to change pace. And by the grace of God, I got in touch with the old owner of the franchise, and he was embarking some new adventures at that time, and we worked out a deal for me to purchase the boat club at the time. So it's been great. It's been really good.
Very cool. So you've got the y'all are in Orange Beach. What other locations do you have?
Yeah, we're actually one of the largest franchise by territory. We actually go all the way from Madisonville, Louisiana, down to Port St. Joe. And I say Port St. Joe because we are in the process of opening that location. We're waiting on the marina to be built back from Michael, and we'll be going in there probably in July. So we have 11 locations now, opening 3 more in the next month or 2. So we'll have 13, 14 locations up for our members just all along the Gulf Coast. So Madisonville, Louisiana, Biloxi, Fairhope, Orange Beach. We're opening a second Orange Beach location here soon. Perdido Key, Gulf Breeze, Pensacola Beach, Fort Walton, Niceville, Panama City, another Panama City, and Port St. Joe. That's the group.
Very cool. Well, Russell,
cool.
Starting things off, let's just maybe define what exactly a boat club is and, start there.
Yeah. And I get this question a lot, and it's not really easy to find. I just say it's boating made simple. And I guess if I was going to relate it to anything, it would be like for our golfers, the people that are here, they're part of a golf membership. It's where you actually pay a down payment to join a club, pay monthly dues, and then you have access to make tee times. But instead of making a tee time, you're making a boating reservation, whether that's a twin engine center console out of Orange Beach to go snapper fishing, whether that's a slide pontoon boat to take the grandkids out to Robinson Island, Bird Island, Shell Island, any of the Crab Island, any of the locations by, or you're taking the kids tubing on a deck boat. So it just gives you a lot of freedom and flexibility without having to handle all the negatives of owning a boat club or a boat yourself. So the club is, like I said, just boating made simple.
Yeah, you mentioned some of those negatives. So, I mean, what factors does somebody need to consider if they're choosing a boat club over owning a boat? Why do people come to you as opposed to owning a boat?
Yeah, people come for all different reasons. And one is what Butch said. They're new to the area. Maybe they've been boaters their whole life, but they lived in freshwater territory, right? And so I will tell you, owning a boat in saltwater with tide changes, currents, and everything else is a lot different than owning a boat on Lake Lanier in Georgia, right? So a lot of people come just to feel out the area and see what they really like. They're not really sure of it. I'll tell you, our best members actually are former boat owners, right? They know what it takes. They know the feeling of defeat when they have 6 people show up to the boat launch, and you get out there, you have everything iced down, you're ready to go, looking for a great day, and something goes wrong with the boat, and you're back putting that back on the trailer if you even found a place to park at one of the boat ramps, right? So they come for a lot of different reasons, but when you're considering it, I would say the question is, how often are you going to use the club, right? How often do you think that you'll boat? I think statistically, most people boat less than 25 times a year. Our members will actually dwarf that number because they don't have to, like I said, trailer it, find a place to park, wash it, clean it, do all those things. We handle all that. So there are days when it's like today, that's almost 100 degrees heat index, and people go, I just don't know it's worth it to do that for 2 hours. But in the boat club, it's easy just to call somebody, get a boat, hop on, and go out for the day, right?
Yeah, so a lot of it is folks just trying to make the use of a boat easier on them. Everybody's got different lives and folks are busy, maybe just need that help. Butch and I talk about it a lot, the difference between having a boat on a lift and having to trailer a boat and launch a boat and then bring it back up on the trailer and get it back to where you store it, wherever that is, and pay for where you store it and wash it. And whenever you have an issue on that boat, if you can't keep it at your house, you got to go get it from storage, work on it, take it somewhere to be worked on. I mean, there's just a lot that goes into owning a boat that is not
for sure
the end game of being out on the water. I could definitely see that. What about, you mentioned folks just kind of getting used to the area and figuring out what they like. What all kind of different boats do you have? I mean, to me, that would be one of the main benefits is like, sure, I love to fish, but there's some days where I just want to go grab my wife and 2 boys and maybe another couple and go jump on the sandbar for a few hours. And I don't need a big fancy fishing boat to do that.
Absolutely. So we do have a wide variety of boats. We have pontoon boats, and our boats normally range from around 18 foot to 27 foot, 29 foot. So we have pontoon boats, we have deck boats, bow riders. We actually have some Zodiacs as well that are in fleet. And then we have center console, single engine and twin engine boats. So really, no matter what you got planned for the water that day, we have a boat that'll fit that need, right? And you actually said it. I have a lot of different members that have boats. I mean, especially big fishing boats. And they go, that's not the boat I want to jump on just to go to Robinson Island and crank up four engines for it, right? So we have a lot of people that own boats that are part of the club. So it just fits a need for a lot of folks.
Indeed. So that kind of brings me to my next question. You mentioned you guys have, locations all the way from Louisiana over to Port St. Joe, kind of over there where Joe is. I mean, if I'm a member over here in, say, the Mobile, Alabama area, like Joe was saying, this would be the perfect setup. We have this issue right this second. How would it work if I wanted to rent a boat, say, over in Destin for the weekend?
Yeah. Hey, Butch, I know it's your show, so I hate to correct you on something, but rent for me is a 4-letter word, because rental boats are just, in my opinion, kind of have a negative connotation. True. Because they're normally not kept up like our boats. I mean, we've got 8-9 technicians that are on staff, and I got 6 guys that are on the road almost every single day, making sure that our boats are in the best condition. We always rotate those boats 2 to 3 years, so you're never really on an old boat. So no offense, but rentals. As a member, as the world's oldest and largest membership only boat club, all you do is you just jump on our online reservation system, and if you want to make a reservation in 3 days for Fort Walton, you just go on. You can figure out. You can search them by just center console boats. I think you said you're fishing. So if you might want a twin engine, you figure out what boat's available, make a reservation. You pick the time that you're going to show up, time that you'll have the boat back, and our staff will have the boat cleaned. It'll be fueled and it'll be ready for you to go.
That's incredible. And thank you for the correction on the distinction there, because you're right. That is a very important part of it, truthfully.
Yeah.
So thanks for correcting me on that. But yeah, it sounds like sounds pretty seamless. Sounds like you could be living in Louisiana and just reserve your spot over there in Destin and travel on over there and be a part of the club over there as well.
Yeah. In my franchise territory, you have unlimited access to all 13 or 11. I mean, we have 11 now, but we'll be at 13, 14 here soon. So you can make unlimited reservations there. But the great thing about it is, if let's say you're not staying in our territory, you're going down to Marco Island, Florida, or you're heading up. I was actually boating in Chicago, in downtown Chicago the other day, which is a totally different boating experience. And so you actually get support reservations outside of our location, right? So you can make 4 per year per other location outside of mine. There's 3, and the number changes daily, guys. I think it's 330 something clubs across the US and actually in Europe as well now, and in Canada. So anywhere you want to go, we probably have a place. And I'll tell you, it makes traveling a lot more fun if you get to see it by land and by water, for sure.
Those are definitely some of the positives. I mean, like you mentioned, being able to go port to port, being able to select a different type of boat to use depending on what you're wanting to do each day, not having to deal with the maintenance. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy working on a boat and keeping a boat in good shape some days, but some days I would like to just be like, all right, y'all, tire up, I'll see you next time, Yep. Just depending on what I've got going on. So I could see all those things as positives. What are some of the negatives of a boat club? Like what are some of the things maybe that you are unexpected for folks to join one?
Yeah. So the negatives, and look, there's pros and cons of owning a boat, and there's pros and cons of joining a boat club, and there's definitely cons of not doing either, right? So, so I will say that the pros outweigh the cons, but here's the cons. And I tell people this all the time. I had a good friend who's one of my family friends, and they wanted to join the club, and I told them I don't think it's right for them because they don't plan anything more than 2 hours out, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're in the boat club and you wake up on the 3rd of July and say, hey, I want to go boating on the 4th of July, I'm probably not going to have a boat available for you, right? The 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day, any Blues Angels practice or show, those are our busiest days, right? So those do book up. I don't have a boat for every single member, but not every member goes out all the time. Actually, we have quite a few members that maybe only got once or twice a year. So the negative is that you have to do some planning, right? The other negative I would say is, and I don't see it as a negative as some of our members might, and I'll tell you that we have insurance, which small craft advisory, we don't send out certain boats, right? Depending on if it's an inshore or offshore. And it's really for the protection of our members. But you wouldn't believe how many people want to take a 19-foot center console out in a small craft advisory to go watch the Blue Angels.
Yes, I would believe it.
So we do have some of those things, and even fog advisory sometimes. So somebody wants to go out at 6:30 in the morning, and some bad fog comes in, and we don't feel that it's safe for them to go out. We will tell them, hey, we got to delay it until the fog comes out. We find that as a pro. But I will tell you that some people aren't happy that they don't get control of that vessel as much as they would if they owned it.
Man, I tell you what, that would actually take the pressure off of me, because
me too.
Like, you get a situation where, you get a situation where somebody's coming into town to visit you, and they really say, hey, let's go fishing while we're there. And, you've got that day or those 2 days to go fishing or do whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
So you feel that pressure, like, well, it's either do or don't. It's not like we can wait till next week.
You and I had that position just recently.
Yeah. And so in those scenarios, it's like, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to go? And I could just be like, nah, man, Russell says I can't go. He says,
That's right.
Yeah, I
it's
can be
his
the
fault.
bad guy. I
Right.
can be, no doubt.
No, I like that a lot. What are you talking about in terms of cost? I mean, that's got to be one of the major, I would think, pros is that
Yeah.
if you have an issue with your boat, you can spend a lot of money really fast whenever you own a boat. And it's just totally up to you to maintain. I think a lot of people that end up buying boats just don't realize how much money goes into maintaining one
And time.
and keep in time and, keeping it in, usable shape. It doesn't matter if you use it a lot. Like it takes the same amount, whether you go 10 days or you go 100 days, really. I mean, there's some things that just have to get done. So when you start to compare, I would think that the cost of being a part of a club would be less than the cost of total ownership of a boat. But how much are we talking about cost wise? Are there different packages or tiers or?
Yeah. We, so let me first preface this by saying each franchise is different because boating in Washington State is a lot different than boating down here. And boating in freshwater is different than the saltwater. So each club is a little bit different because the cost of storage, cost of the boats that they have to run and different things. So, but for our franchise, we have 3 different programs. One is I call my Snowbird program, which blacks out the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday during the peak season. And that starts around $5,000. And it does vary in the peak season or off season a little bit. It starts around $5,000. If you want 365 days of boating for those boats that are 18 to 24 foot, that's going to be around $6,500, give or take some. And then if you want access to our concierge boats, which are twin engines, 26 foot and bigger, then that will actually be about $7,500 currently right now. And then you have monthly dues, but the monthly dues are about the same as what it would cost to store one of our boats in dry storage. So if you're down here, and once again, I tell people we're not right for everybody. I would always be a boat owner if I lived on the water and I had a lift right out back. I will tell you that, right? Unless I'm physically unable to take care of the boat and maintain it where it's safe. That's one reason why I tell you probably should not join, or if you're not good at planning ahead. But I got to tell you, if you have to store a boat anywhere here or trailer a boat, I don't even think it's worth it just because of the headaches or the cost. Our monthly dues range from $299 up to $500 a month, and you can't even store a boat for that anywhere close by.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say next. Is whenever I was living in Virginia, just to be in the boat sale, I'm pretty sure it was about $450 a month just to store my boat, and then I had to pay to store the trailer because I couldn't keep it in my yard in Virginia. It's a dang good deal.
Yeah, and you talk about that, and this is just and I know this sounds like a minor thing, but I mean, 2 years ago we had 7 named storms that hit somewhere along our geographical area, right? And I saw a lot of people coming down here with out-of-state tags that were moving boats. We do all that, right? I mean, we had 2 years ago, I think we had 128 boats, and we moved almost every single one of them at least once. Right.
Wow.
For storms where our members are sitting back and preparing their homes and doing things that they need to do. We're taking care of the boat club assets so that when that storm's passed, we're ready to put them back on the water.
Man, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal right
something
there.
you definitely would not even think about. Just the peace of mind of just not worrying about it. Just if you just really, it sounds like for the person that really just wants to enjoy being on the boat and they really don't get that fired up about waxing boats and keeping them detailed and keeping everything running in tip top shape. And if you're not the kind of guy who enjoys that kind of work and just really want to get out on the water, man, you're giving me a sense of calm. I'm just thinking about how I feel whenever we got a storm coming in or something like that, all the things you got to think about and then worrying about, especially if you got a boat that stays in the water, you're worrying about that. Hopefully you're getting it out of the water or having to move it. That's definitely a big deal. What about the actual operating costs? You're talking about you've got monthly dues and you've got kind of a buy-in, but day to day, like if we come get a boat, is there any, fuel surcharge or anything along those lines?
Yeah, there is a $12.50 fuel fill fee. It's hard to say that fast.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But it's almost like when you rent a car, right? And if you bring it back and it's not filled up. Now, most of our marinas do not want our members at the fuel dock because it gets just really hectic. That's a hectic time, and just for liability issues. So we actually fill them up for our members. So we charge $12.50. It doesn't matter if you went from Sportsman's Marina to Robinson Island and used half a gallon, or if you went 30 miles offshore and you brought it back, it's going to be $12.50. Fill that boat back up because we have to have the employees go over there and do it themselves. Other than that, there's some options that you have. We have our members are covered by insurance, but there is a deductible on that. We have a deductible buy-in if they would like to take that deductible to zero. And look, things happen on the water all the time. Can't tell you how many lower units or props or things that we have to change. And that's just boating, right? It doesn't matter if you own the boat or not. So that can take your deductible to zero. And the only other thing we have is we have a before and after hours. We really start our day at 9 and end at 6. A lot of our boaters want to go out before that. And the only way for me to make that work is we added a $25 fee per month if you want to take it out at sunrise. Boat's got to be back at sunset. So one of the negatives that I didn't talk about before is, and I know a lot of your guys are fishermen, we don't have night fishing. The boat's got to be back at sunset. So I do want to make sure that's clear. I'm not trying to hide that from anybody. The boat's got to be back at sunset.
You don't have to worry about that with me.
That's right. Watch the sunset. I'm done.
I need my beauty sleep. All I can do.
Right. Well, man, Russell, you're talking about, propellers and lower units and incidents on the water. That kind of brings me to my next point. Do you guys just let anybody drive the boat, or is there, do you have to have a boater's license, and what are some of the qualifications that you need?
Great question. Not to be vague on that, but yes, we tell everybody they should have their boater safety certificate and license. We operate in 4 different states, right? So we have Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, and each of them have a different law about the actual license. But yes, we do tell people that they need to go get that. And then we also, it doesn't matter if you're a captain yourself. We have U.S. Coast Guard certified captains on staff, right? I think we have 7 on our staff right now that are always available for training. But before we even get you in, as soon as you pay your initial fee, within 24 hours, 48 hours, you're going to get a call from a captain that's going to actually set up an appointment with you. And they're going to go through, we normally have about a 2-hour in classroom training, and we go through some real detailed stuff. And then we actually have at least 2 hours on the water. And that's just for new member orientation. We have a separate offshore class, which is totally different. And then our members, as long as they're due paying members, they have access to those captains as long as they need for other remedial or anything else. I had a lady the other day just come in and she wanted to learn knots. I mean, she wanted nautical knots, and he spent an hour and a half going over that. And she wanted to tie up boats and also talk about beaching boats. And I have members every year that come back because they have a condo here and they've been gone for 6 months and they haven't been on the water.
Right. Need a refresher course.
Yeah, before I go out, would you take me out? We don't charge them. We don't charge them for that. That's part of our service. We want our members to feel comfortable. And I will tell you, boat clubs and boat rentals get kind of lumped in sometimes, but I will tell you, there are many people that will sell you a boat along the Gulf Coast that will never ask you if you know how to trailer that boat or drive that boat when you leave that lot. And I'll tell you, when our members come on, they'll feel comfortable to take their family and their friends out for a day on the water. I can tell you that.
Man, that's a great resource. I know that as a guy who has gotten his captain's license, every single year, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Got to do that. Or, it's like you forget. I mean, it's just the reality of it. You forget. So it's great to be able to take that refresher course. And then as a guy who runs a tractor some now and didn't grow up on a tractor, I mean, I use one a lot, but that is something where I've had to learn that as an adult. And the way I've learned it is by breaking a whole bunch of crap. And being like, oh, that's why you don't do that, is because you will bend your PTO shaft. Oh, okay. Well, now I know, but I need a new PTO shaft. So it would be nice if there was like a tractor ownership, like don't do this kind of thing. And it sounds like you guys are providing that for folks out on boats. And it doesn't matter how much experience you've got. I always go back to the CPR class. If you've ever taken a CPR class, you get out of there and you're like, man, I could save somebody's life. And then the next time you take your CPR class, you're like, I have forgotten every single thing that I learned the first time I took it. So you really do have to refresh yourself with these things. That's a great resource. And yeah, it's good that you guys want your members to have that out there on the water.
It's important.
It's super important. We see it every year, especially around some of the more touristy passes, how many people get into trouble just from lack of knowledge. It's not that they were really, they weren't doing things wrong, but they weren't doing things to put themselves in harm's way, but they did just out of ignorance.
They didn't know, right?
Happens all the time. And look, our members aren't immune to that. I mean, we have things that happen all the time. But if the worst feeling is you spend this money to either buy a boat, get in a club, and then you take the people that you care the most about, and you don't feel comfortable, right? And I even say we save marriages, and we're kind of one of our things. One of the pros about us is, look, hey, anchoring boats and actually trailing boats cause a lot of fights between husbands and wives, right? And so we actually mitigate that by doing most of that for you and in training you so that everybody's comfortable on the water, right? And if we have a husband and wife team, they're both at that training because we want them to both feel comfortable on the water in case something happens to one of them, right?
Yeah. if you can take the trailering component, like
Oh, yeah, that's
launching
a big deal.
and putting the boat back on the trailer away from me and my wife, man, you're probably going to give us a few more years, I would think. So
Yeah.
We don't even charge for the counseling.
Right, you're speaking my
right.
language now. Well, man, thank you for sharing more about your boating club, Freedom Boat Club, of course, and all your different locations. It's been insightful. I didn't realize there was so much that you guys offer. I really just kind of thought it was more of a, hey, yeah, you can use a boat some of the time. It sounds like there's really a lot of advantages to being a member of one. And I think you've done a good job of sharing who the boat club's really right for, and maybe who's not going to appreciate it as much. But if folks do want to reach out to you, maybe there's a question we didn't ask, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, they can call us at 850-497-0130 and prompts. They can also go on our Facebook page. We put a lot of information out there. But I will tell you the best thing to do, guys, is come to one of our locations on a Saturday, Sunday morning when we have a lot of people coming out. Go around 9 o'clock and talk to our members, right? I will tell you that our members are raving fans. We aren't right for everybody. I've already said that many times. But for the right person, it is absolutely just a godsend to be able to enjoy our backyard without the hassles and headaches of ownership of a boat. So come on down, meet our staff, and talk to our members and see if it might be right for you.
Butch, I don't know about you, but listening to Russell describe what it's like to be a part of a boating club gives me a sense of just relaxation. It seems like you'd really get to have all the fun parts of
without the headaches, it sounds like,
of owning a boat,
really,
without the headaches of owning a boat. And I could see it not being right for the guy that's a super hardcore angler and he wants to customize his boat to have it just the way he wants it. And for the guy that fishes a bunch, I mean, it even sounds like if you do enough planning, you could work around that, even if you do fish a lot.
Especially if you knew you're going to be in your condo, these 4 weeks out of the year, it'd be pretty easy to get an offshore boat reserved or a fishing boat reserved, and you'd be fine in that aspect.
And I think if you live on the water and you got a boat lift, but I mean, most people that are moving to the water with the dog or the boat lift probably are doing it because they love boating so much, So like, I could see this being totally right for folks that do want to fish and do want to go out. But then I think about too, like, I do love to fish, but again, just being able to grab a different style of boat for a different type of day would be really cool, a really cool feature as well. Not having to own multiple boats, multiple insurances, multiple maintenance. That's another big thing too. We've seen this through the pandemic. Getting parts. If you have a boat that goes down, a lot of times you want to go and you're staring at it sitting on the trailer in your backyard. I mean,
yeah, especially if you're not very mechanically inclined. I mean, you're going to be at somebody else's mercy to come work on that rig for you.
Yeah, I mean, and you know how it is. Once you get ready to go, you want to go.
Right, for sure.
And there's nothing more frustrating than owning a piece of equipment that's broken down when you need it, because that's the entire reason you bought it. So, guys, hope you enjoyed this little segment on boating clubs and it helped you. I'll reach out to Russell if you got any more questions.
All right, folks, you guys take a quick break and check out a few of this week's sponsors. That segment was brought to you by L&M Marine. L&M Marine has something for everyone, from small hunting boats, pontoon boats, to bigger bay boats and offshore hybrids. L&M Marine LLC prides itself on its customer service and knows how important it is to have someone you can trust and to be taken care of. They are locally owned and regularly support the community. L&M Marine provides superior customer service and has an entire team that consists of professional sales members, finance experts, service technicians, and a knowledgeable parts and accessory staff to support you. Go visit their friendly, reliable, and experienced staff, now located only 6 miles north of I-10 at 34600 Highway 59 in Stapleton, Alabama, or give them a call at 251-937-1380. And also brought to you by the Alabama Marine Resources Division. The Alabama Marine Resources Division reminds all recreational anglers who harvest gray triggerfish, greater amberjack, or red snapper that their catch must be reported through Snapper Check. This includes vessels, kayaks, and shore anglers who possess any of these reef fish. Reporting is mandatory and must be done prior to landing fish in Alabama, regardless of where the fish were caught. Anglers can report to Snapper Check online at outdooralabama.com or through the official Outdoor AL app. For more information about Snapper Check or any of the 2021 fishing seasons, please visit outdooralabama.com. And also brought to you by United Bank. United Bank knows what an important role agriculture plays in our local economy. At United Bank, they are here to support local farmers with financial products and services designed specifically for agribusiness, including real loans for farmland, equipment loans, working lines of credit, and more. Truth is, they deeply value the contributions agriculture makes to our communities, and they help our local farmers build successful businesses. They want to see you succeed. Learn more at unitedbank.com or stop by any United Bank branch. United Bank, all loans subject to credit approval, equal housing opportunity lender, member FDIC.
Butch, ever since we talked to Kevin Olmsted about his scare on the water, we've been talking about really, we didn't know much about inflatables, like the way they work, the different options that are out there in the market. I think for a lot of our anglers, they're just not going to wear.
Well, they're probably in the same boat that we are. They just don't know much about them, don't know that they exist, and don't know what options are out there if they do know they exist.
Right. When you think of a life preserver, you just tend to think of an uncomfortable,
big orange,
bulky, hot thing that you wear if there's an emergency. And that's just, man, the technology's come a long way, and there's no reason to be in a situation where you're unprotected. So on today's show, we're really going to be talking about how you can choose the right inflatable life vest for your style of fishing, your style of boating. To do that, we're talking with Jonathan Liu, the product manager for flotation with Mustang Survival. Well, Jonathan, welcome to the show, man. First off, tell us a little bit about your role as the product manager for flotation with Mustang Survival.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for having me. Like Joseph said, my name is Jonathan Liu. I'm the recreational product manager for the flotation portfolio of Mustang Survival. And the best way to, describe a product manager, just very high level, is that we're the voice of the consumer within the organization. So I sit on the product team, which is comprised of engineers, designers, product developers, QA, et cetera. And we as a product manager sit kind of in between that to ensure that all those teams are, as we design and develop and test and go to market with products, we are ensuring that the product that we bring to market is what the consumer is desiring. Now, obviously, like there are constraints, like anything else in this world with costs and with supply chain as we know it in this world right now. And so it's finding that perfect balance of all the tension and to bring to market the best product that we can in that specific context.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're kind of like dealing with lots of different parties, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but also dealing with the regulation side, especially with flotation. Got to make sure that you're following the rules and producing something that's going to help save people's lives. And, just recently we told the story of Kevin Olmsted, who nearly lost his life, partly because he didn't have a life jacket on when he went overboard. And that's really what made us realize that no matter what kind of life jacket you choose for fishing, none of them will work unless you have it on when you need it.
100%.
Fishing tends to be, it's not totally, but it tends to be a male dominated pastime. Mm-hmm. We're all big, tough guys.
A little macho.
Yeah. And if you've never worn a life jacket or a PFD of some type while you were fishing, it can make you feel a little self-conscious, I think, to have one on. And additionally, the comfort aspect of it comes in play, especially here in the Southeast, where we're just getting on the other end of a really just
brutal hot spell.
Brutal heat wave. You start thinking about having a PFD on all day long while you're casting.
Mm-hmm.
All those reasons can lead to guys just leaving their life vest stowed. So really, there's so much technology advancement out there that I think it was really the idea of the show is to talk about what's possible in the world of inflatables and how somebody can choose one that's best for them. So, before we jump into the different things that people need to think about when it comes to inflatables, when it comes to on the water fatalities, do you have any idea of what percentage of people are not wearing life jackets?
Yeah, for sure. So the Office of Boating Safety, which goes under USCG, has statistics reports, and it's very clear that you have a very exponentially higher survival rate when you wear PFDs. And I think for 2021, of the under 500 fatalities on the water that were recorded and known, so there probably is more, over 85% of those individuals were not wearing flotation. Wow. And that's, that obviously fluctuates year to year, but we see it between, the high 70s, low 80s to peaking mid to high 80s over the past, 5-10 years, but so it's fairly consistent is the short answer of it. And, it's really interesting that you brought up, this Kevin story. We have our own ambassador, Hunter Blend. I know you may know him. He's also very prominent in the fishing world. And a couple of years ago, he had a steering issue with his boat, his steering failure. And so his boat went kind of jackknifed a little bit on the side and then hit a wave and threw him and his brother overboard. And he was wearing an inflatable vest and it deployed and basically saved his life. And he had a kill switch on, so the boat didn't take off on him. And now he's an advocate, have you will. And he goes around basically telling and preaching to people like, hey, you got to wear your life vest to save my life and it can save yours too. And to your point, like it just becomes I'm wet rather than like, oh, it could have not only ruined your day, but could have ruined your life,
Yeah. And so, not only your life, ruined the lives of your family and
totally.
Got families at home nowadays. That's right.
Yeah.
More to think about there.
Yeah. I mean, and I just, like we were talking about, there's a lot of different reasons why people don't wear them. But when it comes to inflatables, what are the various types that are out there? I've never worn them myself. Have you, Butch? I mean, I've had an experience where I wore one. I mean, just kind of off, but I don't know anything about them. So when it comes to those inflatable type life vests, what are the different types?
Yeah. So the first thing you think about is like the activation mode, right? So you have an automatic activation, and then you have a manual. A manual being if you jump in the water, nothing's going to happen, but there is a pull activation cord for you to pull to manually activate it. And in the activation realm within Mustang Survival, we have two technologies that we use. One is a water contact, or what we call water contact. So it uses a dissolvable bobbin. So just think of like medication pill formula. When water hits it, it dissolves. And so when that bobbin formula dissolves, it activates the puncture pin, which hits the cylinder, which then inflates your bladder. So that's water contact. And then we have another one where it's hydrostatic. And so that's water pressure. So it senses the pressure differential. So basically, if you're submerged in about 4 inches of water, that pressure differential will activate the pin and inflate. So there's two different types of activations, but they're both automatic. And I can get into why one would choose the one before the other. And so for manual, it's like those people who are in and out of the water regularly, and being in and out of the water doesn't really disturb them, meaning like that's just normal, right? Mm-hmm. And those who, want that control. So, we've gone to shows before and some of these parents are like, oh, I want the manual because I can just jump in and I can swim to my kids if I need to, grab them, bring them back in the boat or help them along or see how they're doing. But if I'm in trouble, then I can pull it to inflate to give me the safety I need, right? The automatics are more for those who are like, going in the water is ideally not really a good day.
Yeah, right.
For the most part, right?
If I hit water, I want something good to happen. I need this thing to inflate and hold me up.
Yeah, right. So the best way we kind of describe it is, is entering the water first. So we kind of have a decision tree is like, it's sort of like, do you expect to be in and out of the water? You know what I mean? And if the question is no, okay, if you do hit the water, is it an emergency? And emergency is relative to everyone, right? But that's based on your threshold and your comfort in the water. So if you are a super comfortable swimmer, maybe jumping in the water is not a big deal, then maybe a manual is okay for you. But at the same time, for me personally, like I don't particularly love to be in the water, or I would be shocked if I fell in the water. I would like something to give me some safety net right away. So you can go into the foam side of things, which is, you have inherent buoyancy, but those who are looking inflatables would probably err towards an automatic, right? Now, the differences between the dissolvable pin water contact versus the hydrostatic is, sometimes, so at the higher levels of performance, so I'm going to use the words, I'm going to go into sailing. I know this is fishing, but sailing, like if you're on the bow of a sailboat and it's getting really sporty and you're getting like green water over the bow and it's hitting you, water contact automatic could actually accidentally inflate. And that actually may not be a good day either. Right. And so these pro teams will want the hydrostatics because they have less prone to accidentally auto inflate. Right.
Yeah, and so I could see that too. Like, I could just see if Butch had on the water contact, I'd probably mess with him and go spray him with a hose. For sure. Just to watch
you would. Well, in your humid conditions in Alabama, we hear some people in Texas, like, just the humidity alone will possibly eat away at the dissolvable pin. So that dissolvable bobbin, sorry. So that's why we always ask people to inspect, right? People who leave it into the water coolers, as the ice melts and saturates the air with water, that can over 4 or 5 days cause it to prematurely auto inflate, right? And so it's a different use case for different people, but both, the biggest ones is you have the manual and then you have the automatic, and then there's 2 steps of the automatic. The dissolvable bobbin is for those who just want the immediate instant flotation, and the other ones are those more of a probably experienced user, a pro user, or hairy conditions who actually want to avoid the accidental inflation, but when they are thrown into the water, they know that it will inflate to keep them.
That's a
airways
great synopsis,
protected.
and I like what you said about it being a kind of a decision tree. Like if you know you're going to get in and out of the water, you probably need to go with a manual. If you don't want to be in the water and it's a bad day when you end up in the water, you want to go with an automatic, because like you said too, think about getting thrown out of a boat. There's a good chance you may hit your head. You could get knocked unconscious. I would imagine that if you have one of those type of situations, automatic could save your life.
Absolutely.
Whereas a manual, you got to be conscious to pull it. I think about fishermen, a lot of times we're in and out of the water. We may be wade fishing. We may be fishing out of a kayak.
As hot as it's been, my sweat would have put that thing off last week.
Yeah. So that's a great synopsis. Thinking about inflatables again, what technical specifications are important when it comes to choosing an inflatable, say for your body size? Like I'm 6'5", I'm 250 pounds. I'm a big guy. Like, do I need to look at different types of inflatables to be able to hold me up versus, Butch, he's about 5'6". What are you, 5'5", Butch? Maybe 120 pounds?
For sure.
No. But no, I mean, does it change, or are they all going to be able to hold up?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And so it comes down to kind of the water state you're in. So like glassy being like, very calm versus like more exposure and a little bit choppy. And so it's funny because when people think, oh, like I'm a bigger guy, I'm going to need more flotation, because they, you see a lot of these inflatables and they'll, state 28 pounds of buoyancy. We stated, 28 pounds of buoyancy performance and 38 pounds. And people go, what does that mean? Higher means more. I'm a bigger dude. I'm heavier. I probably need more. But really, people who are bigger, who have like a higher fat content, I'm just going to say it right, like actually more buoyant, versus someone like me who's super skinny, doesn't have a lot of fat content. I would actually sink more than, we know a guy in the office who's a little bit bigger, and he would actually float better. And so it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm 300 pounds versus I'm 150 pounds, I need more weight. For the most part, anything that's approved there, the buoyant performance would on average provide the enough support for any human being. Right. And so as an example, like in super calm, still water, let's just picture a pool. An average human being would need roughly 12 pounds of buoyant force to keep them afloat. Now, the minimum standard in North America is 15.8. And they've done that because, you have a little safety limit, a little bit extra just to keep people up. So it's around 15.8 pounds. However, you start to add choppiness of water and everything, and that's when you want, the higher buoyancy. And that's more to do just to protect your airway, right? And to keep your head above the water. And from that perspective. So for you, Joseph or Butch, like if I gave you an RMIT 100, which has 28 pounds of buoyancy, both of you would be okay with with that type of buoyant performance, right? Where it starts to get a bit more technical is the type level. So you've got probably see type 2, type 3, and not to like belabor the point. And, standards will, probably will progress, into levels in the future, but that's another conversation for another day.
Right.
But right now in the United States, you have your type 2s and type 3s. And there's a difference between type 2 and type 3. Type 2 performance has a better airway protection, a better turning performance than a type 3. And so the standards that are required for that device to meet are higher. And so both will have a higher probability of turning average users like face up, but a type 2 will have a stronger performance to do that.
So Joe, you asked me a minute ago if I'd ever worn one, an inflatable, and I have. I did the BP thing for a while, and we were required to wear the shoulder harness ones with the CO2 cartridge that were, I'm not sure if they were the dissolvable or the hydrostatic, to be honest with you. I know it had a CO2 cartridge and a manual as well. And Joe, you were saying you fish with a guide, Captain Bobby. He's always super self-regulating and just trying to get on top of the curve. He's always really safe. And he is now making his clients, or made Joe, maybe he just knew you couldn't swim, Joe. Well, he gave you one.
I told him, man, I get back to what Jonathan was saying. Like, I eat plenty of biscuits. I'm probably fairly
fluffy. Yeah, fairly
pretty
fluffy.
good flotation here on the body as it is. I probably don't need to wear that. But if you're going to make me, I think what you're getting at is belt, using
Shoulder
the fanny
versus
pack
fanny
style
pack.
versus I mean, Jonathan, like fishing and day of fishing, boy, the inflatable belt pack is like super
Seems to be the way to go for us.
Almost not even there. Whereas having something around my neck and on my shoulders, it's going to definitely be hotter. Even if it is still pretty minimalist. What's the difference between the two? Why would somebody choose one or the other?
Oh yeah, for sure. So the belt pack kind of became really popular with, like, it gained a lot of traction with the sub crowd.
Yeah.
right? And so because let's be honest, like a lot of them wear bikinis and swim trunks and they don't want tan line.
Right.
Let's be real here. From
Yeah.
the vanity perspective, that was probably one of the big motivations. Another one is exactly what you said. Like I could wear it around my waist and I don't feel like I'm wearing anything. And it's could be a super hot day and I could be paddling and I can jump in the water. I'm comfortable. I'm swimming. I got the leash. But hey, if I get caught in a little bit of moving water and I'm a little bit like, oh, spooked out, I can pull it. But one thing to note is that a belt pack, we always advise like you have to be fairly comfortable in the water to have a belt pack because you need to be able to be aware to pull it and as the pillow inflates to put it over your head.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have that comfort in that scenario, right? While an inflatable horseshoe collar, like you mentioned, Joseph, like if you fall in, if it's automatic, it's going to go off and it's going to immediately just like cradle around your neck and your shoulders, right? And then if it's a manual, you'll pull it and you don't have to don, it's already done, right?
Right.
And so that's the main difference, I would say. So, there's obviously pros to the belt pack being super low profile and away from off your body, but it's designed for those who are very comfortable in the water and specifically inshore. So very like not exposed waters, like kind of calm, right? Like most people won't be wearing belt packs into like coastal or offshore conditions. It's not advisable.
Yeah. I think, going back to what you were saying about choosing automatic versus manual. I mean, if you know you're going to be in and out of the water a bunch, something like a belt pack is better than nothing, which is what most people who are in and out of the water a bunch, or they're in an environment where it's hot, or like in the case of us guys that have done a lot of fishing, you just don't think it's going to happen to you. Most people don't think it's going to happen to you, and you don't have time to react when it does. And so having something is going to be better than nothing. If you know you're going to be in an environment where if you fall off the boat or if you end up in the water, there's also a good probability that you may have some type of trauma, like you've had a boating accident, or in the case of like my father's on the Great Loop right now, and they're in a big trawler, 42-foot trawler. Like if one of them were to fall off of that boat, it's probably happening during mooring or unmooring, or also maybe going through like locks and dams and things like that. Like if they were to fall off in that scenario, it's a bad situation. It's not good. There's nothing good that's going to come from it. So having that horseshoe might be better for them, where they're not really at risk of falling off that much, but if they do, it's going to be bad. I would imagine kind of the same thing would apply to the belt pack versus the horseshoe style, like you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the safest life jacket is the one you wear. Like just as a person, not working at Mustang, I would just advise anyone on the water like to invest into a life jacket. Obviously, like being from Mustang Survival, buy our stuff, but stepping back, we want to advocate for people to be safe on the water, right? But just to give it a little background, Mustang Survival is, we're about 55 years basically in the marine, saving people's lives on the marine environments. And, we started off with the floater jacket. That was kind of the thing. And it's now progressed into a full line of inherent buoyant foam vests and inflatables. And up around like 5 to 7 years ago, we had a fundamental kind of shift in terms of our focus, in terms of from being a safety company to being a performance-oriented company, because we recognize that the safest product is the one you wear.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to focus on ergonomics and comfort. We wanted to focus on users having, wanting to wear it because it's comfortable, not because it's bulky or cumbersome. And that motivation would inherently save lives. So we kind of changed that focus in our organization as we push forward in our designs and our materials and all that going forward. That's the lens we see our products through.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, like you said, the safest one is the one you'll actually wear. And if they're not ergonomic, if they're not comfortable, if they don't match your style of fishing you're doing, or I know you guys even make camouflage options for guys that are out duck hunting and things like that, then they're not going to wear it, and it can't save their life if they don't have it on. Along the same lines of if you don't wear it, if you don't have it, then you can't wear it. And there's a big variation in price. I mean, you're talking about some of your inflatables costing 3 times as much as the others. Mm-hmm. So what's going on with the variation in price? What are you getting as you increase in price? What are some of the features maybe that are added on as you start to step up in price?
Yeah, for sure. So just to walk through some of our line, we are a tried and true MIT line, which is pretty much like, it's sort of like the gateway to our Mustang brand in terms of inflatables. And that is the water contact. So, either a manual or a dissolvable bobbin style of flotation. And then very popular within the bass fishing market is our Elite 28. And it is a significant price difference. And one of that is that Hamar hydrostatic inflator versus the Hockey Roberts dissolvable bobbin. And that in itself is one of the big differentiating factors in terms of price point. The hydrostatic unit is significantly more expensive. And there's a couple of things to that though. Actually, if you think about the rearming price, like the hydrostatics are maintenance free for about 5 years. So if you actually don't activate it and the light is still green, it has a time. We have a stamp on these things in terms of time. You don't have to kind of switch out the inflator until 5 years. So if you add the dissolvable bobbins, because of just the bobbin itself, like I told you, that pill material, you need to inspect that every year just for integrity and decay. And we advise that if you haven't actually activated it, to swap that out every 2 years just to be safe, right? And so the Hamar is sort of has a longer span of maintenance free in a sense. And so that's where you're paying for the premium in that regards. And then just in terms of for the inflator unit, that's one of the price point differences. And the next thing is the Elite 28 was, we designed it under more like a chassis. So the bass fishermen love it because it's very low profile, it's slim, and it's very snug to the body. So when you're at speed, it's not flapping around and anything like that. So, as you move up in price point, there are more durable materials. You got an air mesh liner, things to keep you cool. And then on top of that, we're taking more into account, more shaping and ergonomics into the unit, right?
Yeah. And like you said, for those bass fishermen, I mean, those guys are running around going really fast. If they have a boating accident, it's going to be a bad situation.
Yeah. They're in the water. It's going to be significant.
Water. Most likely not, hopefully, but most likely not going to be manually inflating anything. So they need that. They need that hydrostatic.
For sure.
I think too, though, y'all even make some stuff that is like, ergonomics is great, but then also functionality wise, I mean, can inflatables be incorporated into like fishing vests and things like that, where you actually have storage and, it becomes a functional garment as opposed to just a PFD?
Yeah. And like anything, because, as Mustang Survival, we want to push out products that are approved for carriage within North America, which we can get into later on. But a lot of that will come down to the just testing of that. So, if we do have, additional pockets and then the in-water testing of the product during the development stage, we'll take that into account. And so we'll need to engineer and compensate for that, right? But right now, we do not have a fishing vest specifically with additional pocketing for that's inflatable. We had one, but it was an unapproved product. We're taking that off the market, and we're kind of we're going back to the drawing board to figure out how we can design that better. That thing's been in our line for like 15, 20 years. And I think, it needs some love. We're taking it off. We're kind of like going back to drawing board, trying to get our engineers to take a look at it and design it, just trying to figure out how we want to present that to the market. Yeah.
So, you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I think this is very important. When it comes to inflatables, are all inflatables U.S. Coast Guard approved? Like, can you use these as the same way you would a normal USCG approved
foam
life vest that lives on your boat, or are there additional regulations that go into inflatables?
Yeah, that's an excellent question as well. I can't speak to the market as a whole, because there are a whole bunch of companies that do make off, and there's knockoffs as well. And so that's a good point. So you will see like an inflatable vest on Amazon that, the brand you may not recognize, and those ones may not be approved. Right. And so that's something the user will need to take into consideration, because a lot of people will come to us in our shows and go, hey, I got this Amazon vest for $50. Like, how come yours is whatever? And then, we look at, like there's no labeling on the back. Like we're trying to look for, there's not even a label. Right.
Yeah.
And so in short, for Mustang Survival, our goal is to for a lot of our recreational devices, there are some on the commercial, industrial, military side that are not approved, but that's a different use case scenario, right? Those people are trained for specific scenarios and they need a specific type of gear for their quote unquote mission profile or their environment. That's fine. But for the recreational as a whole, we push out products that are approved. And the major difference is that, all North American approved products, need to meet, the standards from U.S. Coast Guard and for carriage. And so they have different, different use cases for those. And then UL, which is an independent body, will test to those standards. And so everything that we submit that has an approval in the market will go through this vigorous testing process. And that goes from anything from donning and doffing to material, material testing to in-water performance and et cetera, et cetera. So it's fairly vigorous. And, we have to work with a set of approved materials as well that, get weather tested and UV tested to ensure that it doesn't degrade over, X amount of time and things like that. So,
all right, Jonathan. So you touched on it a little bit earlier. We're talking about the price differences between some of the different options. It sounds like the hydrostatic one is the most expensive, but it's also the most comprehensive as far as all around unit that's going to be there whenever you need it in at least a pretty nasty situation. As far as manual versus automatic, I know there's two different kinds of the automatic, the hydrostatic versus the dissolvable. If we inflate, any of these three options, what gets us back on the water, so to speak? Just kind of walk us through, do you guys have replacement cartridges, or how does it work for each one if you inflate it?
For sure. Yeah. So all of our inflatable vests, our belt packs have corresponding rearm kits that we provide to support the user so they continue to use their product for years to come on the water. And so the rearm kits are comprised of everything they need for them to rearm. So yeah, we have videos online on our website that have step-by-step instructions on how to repack and how to rearm and how to inspect your PFDs. But for the most part, the repacking is, deflation of the inflatable cell bladder, and then there's folding instructions. And then, depending on the unit, it could be simply just unscrewing the spent cylinder and putting a new one back in, or taking out a cylinder and then putting the new bobbin in and things like that. It depends on the unit. But that's pretty much it. Yeah. So rearm kit would basically get you back on the water.
Well, Jonathan, the fact that you can rearm these life vests and reuse them, it's all the more reason to make sure you choose the right one, because this is something that you're going to have it for years and years and years. If you spend a lot of time on the water, hopefully it's going to spend a lot of time with you. So if folks do want to go check out the Mustang lineup and kind of compare and contrast the different types of inflatable PFDs that you guys make, or even reach out to you guys and maybe figure out which one's right for them, depending on the kind of fishing they like to do, the kind of boating they like to do, where would you point them to?
Well, first thing would be our website, right? Our website has our full product lineup with the descriptions and how-to videos. Our website also has contact us if you want to speak to a CX representative. I'm in touch with CX all the time, kind of supporting them to help them relay the proper information to our user group and to our customers.
Jonathan, man, it's been informative. I feel like I have a much better understanding of the inflatable lineup. I know that this is something that after hearing Kevin's story, we've all been talking about it internally. We're all going to incorporate not just having life jackets on board, but wearing life jackets of some type whenever we're out on the water. There's really no reason not to. There's plenty of different options out there for folks for their comfort and ergonomics. And there's companies like yours that are thinking about that in your manufacturing process. So we appreciate you coming on with us and sharing some of your knowledge on the subject.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Butch, the number that he gave, the statistic that he gave on 85% of the deaths occurred when people did not have on a life jacket. That's pretty staggering.
Yeah, that's pretty strong
when you think about it. And I mean, you could easily have been one of those people. Mm-hmm. Luckily, we haven't been in any kind of a boating accident. I haven't been in a situation where I would have needed a life jacket ever in all my time on the water. However, you don't know when that day's coming. Going back to talking to Kevin, he had no idea that was going to happen. And nobody knows. You don't know, and you don't have time to react. And there's so many different products out there now. There's so many different options out there now. You don't have an excuse from a comfort standpoint. You don't have an excuse from a macho standpoint. You just don't. And even, I'd rather be uncomfortable than drown.
Sure. Me too. I would agree with that.
I just think I look at these life jackets now as I just think about it like the seatbelt in your car. You wouldn't get in your car and not put on your seatbelt knowing that there's a good chance, even if you think it's a small chance that you're going to be in a car accident, you still put your seatbelt on.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I don't know, just this coming off the top of my head right now. But one thing that not makes me nervous or goes in the back of my mind is, does days on the water increase your chances of something like this happening?
Right.
Just kind of by a sheer numbers perspective. Probably.
Oh, I would think so. Yeah. Your probability of having, the more time you spend on the water, your probability of having an instance is higher. Definitely.
Right. Has to be. So
has to be. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be better. You guys, hope y'all enjoy this segment. Jonathan did a great job of laying out pretty much what you need, when you need it, and why you would need what you need, basically.
Yeah. How to make a decision on an inflatable. Y'all go get some.
All right, guys, that wraps up another great segment. That segment was brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Enjoy less stress knowing you have reduced your risk for damage with Foster Contracting. Check them out at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-447-2978. All right, folks, that wraps up another great Alabama saltwater fishing report. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to text the word fishing to 314-665-1767 to get that 10% off AFCO promo code and also to be added to our email list. And we'll send you the new show each week. You guys be safe out there. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea temps, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at hiltonsoffshore.com. And also brought to you by boaterslist.com. If you own or run a boat, you know how difficult it can be to find the right company for the task at hand. Sign up at boaterslist.com to find a company to work with on your next boat project. And also brought to you by Bahio Sunglasses. See more, catch more. Experience the clearest lenses on the planet with Bahio Sunglasses. Try on a pair at your local retailer or check out bahiosunglasses.com to see for yourself. And also brought to you by KillerDock. KillerDock uses marine-grade aluminum to make fabulous fish cleaning tables and stunning canopies that will keep us out of the sun. KillerDock combines durability, function, and design to uniquely upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit killerdock.com to see more. And also brought to you by Bucks Island. They have new pontoon boats, bass boats, bow riders, and aluminum boats for sale. They provide boat service on all kinds of boats, even if they weren't purchased from Bucks. Visit them at 4500 Highway 77 in Southside, Alabama, or give them a call at 256-442-2588. And also brought to you by Fishbites. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits, as well as tackle at fishbites.com. Also brought to you by Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks are proud to be your metal roofing headquarters for over 40 years. Save time and money by buying from the most reliable manufacturer on the Gulf Coast. Buy it today, pick it up today. With the addition of their new store in Cantonment, Florida, they now have 8 locations to serve you. Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks, your metal roofing headquarters. Also brought to you by MB Ranch King. MB Ranch King hunting blinds and feeders are built to last, right here in the USA. They offer high-quality, easy-to-use corn and protein feeders that can be filled with both feet on the ground. Call Kevin today for more info or a quote at 205-807-2937. MB Ranch King, built in the pursuit of perfection. And also brought to you by Test Calibration. Test Calibration is your source for sales and service of diesel turbochargers and fuel injection systems since 1976. Contact them at 800-822-0057 or visit them online at testcalibratindieselandturbo.com.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like a horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com.